نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters, today is going to be a lecture in refutation of the Deobandi Molana Mumtaz who made allegations that Mirza Ghulam Qadiani, the apostate who claimed prophethood, was Ahl Hadith. So he had a small clip on YouTube, 3-4 minutes, in which he made these allegations. So some brothers, particularly, brother Yaseen Chaudry, who runs Facebook Hanafi fiqh versus Muhammadi fiqh, requested me to refute these statements. First, I said to brother Yaseen Chaudry that there are many lectures in Urdu, like the lecture of Molana Umar Siddiq, which I will give a link to it below my lectures on YouTube. So people who understand Urdu can also listen to the lecture of Molana Umar Siddiq. I said many of our scholars have refuted this falsehood, this false claim. But obviously because all the brothers, even from the subcontinent in England, don't speak Urdu, so there's a point to refute these allegations into English as well. So I said to brother Yaseen Chaudry, this shows the desperation of the Deobandis and Molana Mumtaz al-Haq. And brother Yaseen asked me how it shows that desperation. And inshallah, we're going to show in this lecture that Molana Mumtaz al-Haq is complete, and the Deobandis are completely in total despair, because the Ahlul Hadith, mashallah, in all countries, India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and in the West, have exposed the Deobandis for what they are. Because they're pretending to be muwahid, people of Tawheed, people following the Sunnah, while we see in their books, their credits very close to the Brailvis, and they are also involved in grave worship, khurafat, Sufi stories, and wrong beliefs. So, because the Ahlul Hadith have exposed to the layman what they had in some of their books or their secret beliefs, then obviously the only way for them to make people run away from Ahlul Hadith, so they do not listen to the Ahlul Hadith, they do not read their web pages, they do not listen to lectures, is to make false allegations against Ahlul Hadith. Because we, alhamdulillah, our scholars, India, Pakistan, and elsewhere, have exposed the Deobandi for what they are. They are people who believe in Wahdatul Wujud. Imdadullah, in my previous lectures, I've exposed that Molana Mumtaz al-Haq and Darul Uloom Deoband, they believe in Wahdatul Wujud. And Molana Mumtaz al-Haq, he wrote on Yaseen Chaudry's Facebook page that no, Ali Hassan Khan lied against me, made false allegations. We Deobandi do not say that Allah is present in everything. Then I gave to the brother Yaseen Chaudry, I emailed him the fatwa that is present on deoband.org. Official fatwa of Darul Uloom Deoband, the highest authority of the Deobandi school of thought. And I showed him the fatwa that was in Urdu, that Allah har cheez mein mawjood hai, Allah is present in everything. And before Mumtaz al-Haq said, this is the belief of the Hindus. We don't believe this. Ali Hassan Khan made false allegations, I guess. And when brother Yaseen Chaudry put this link on his Facebook page, Mumtaz al-Haq stopped writing on his Facebook page and did not reply to it. So he said, Ahlul Hadith are making false allegations. When we showed him the fatwa, and he said, oh, this is the belief of the Hindus, then obviously he did not rule that Darul Uloom Deoband had the belief of Hindus. So on Wahdatul Wujud, these people, they don't want to debate about Fusus al-Hikam. They don't want to even have a little talk about Fusus al-Hikam and Ibn Arabi and his creed. So this, we have exposed them. So instead of replying to our allegations against them, what they do is they do counter-allegation and ridiculous one just to make the Awham hate the Ahlul Hadith. And because we have exposed them, you see, in Kulliyat Imdadiyah, we have clearly shown their scans on my webpage, umalqura.org. We have clearly shown that they are people of Wahdatul Wujud. Haji Imdadullah Maki writes in Kulliyat Imdadiyah and the Risala Diyal Kulub, Arif hakikat insani tak jo ke uluhiyat pe pahunch gaya. Meaning the Arif, the Gnostic, hakikat insani tak, he reached the reality of humanhood, jo ke uluhiyat hai. Meaning after the state of Fana, the Arif reaches the reality of humanhood, which is uluhiyah. And then he carries on saying, he carries on to say that Khuda ke ilm ke zariye se apne aap ko mutlaq qaid mein ayat tasavvur karta hai aur quyud ki wajah se apne aap ko banda samajhta hai. And he said because Allah has put a condition in his brain, he believes that he is a servant, while in reality he has reached the level of uluhiyah. Aur kahe uthta hai la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So he believes because Allah has put in his brain a condition, and he says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. इस मर्तबे में खुदा का खलीफा होकर लोगों को इस तक पहुंचाता है और जाहिर में बंदा और बातिन में खुदा हो जाता है, meaning apparently he is a servant but internally he is God, खुदा हो जाता है और इस मकाम को बरज़ख बराज़िख कहते हैं. And then he said at this level he reaches everything in the universe becomes under his control and everything else. So we have exposed these people for what they are. You see, these kinds are present of the Deobandi. I mean, I've written a book against them and I've explained all these quotes of Wahdatul Wujud and how they follow Ibn Arabi. There's a smaller version of my book on Al-Qura, the creed of the Deobandi elders. Everybody can read these scans in Urdu. Likewise, we can expose Ashraf Ali Thanvi being a sorcerer in his book A'mal Qurani, which is also translated into English under the name Remedies from the Quran. Subhanallah. It means these remedies from the Quran. And in this book, Ashraf Ali Thanvi teaches sorcery. He's saying if you want to separate between two people, he's suggesting to make a ta'weez. He said you write an ayat from the Quran and you make a square with Allah, 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 and you, between these you write sihr, magic, and then you bury this ta'weez in between two old graves and you will separate between two people. And this is black magic. So we expose them, not only they're propagating black magic in Urdu, but also in English, and they don't see any harm in propagating black magic. They have also many other books of black magic, like the book Jawair Khamsa, which tells to write the Fatiha in disorder and tells some wazaif to kill people, some wazaif recitations to have, according to them, Mulk Suleiman, meaning you control the universe. Even if you order the sun to come at night time, it will come at night time. If you order the sun to come at daytime, to disappear, it will disappear. So these people, they teach Wahdatul Wujud, they teach black magic. In Tazkiratu Rasheed, of which is the biography of Molana Rashid Ahmad Gangui, there's a story of the prostitute as well, which shied in front of a saint, and the saint said, why you shy? Who is the doer of zina and who is doing it? So even the prostitute got Hashem say, you have no shame. So for them, Allah is everything, Allah is present everything. The book Imdadul Mushtaq of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, which quotes the saying of his teacher Muhajir Maki Imdadullah, and there are stories like the highest level of the meaning of La ilaha illallah. The highest meaning is there is La mawjuda illallah, there is no existence except Allah. And there are many stories to substantiate this creed. Like someone asked the people of Wahdatul Wujud, but if everything is Allah, why does you eat sweet halwa but you don't eat dirt? And he said, this muwahid turned first he eat the halwa, the sweet dish, and then he turned his face into a pig, and then he ate the dirt as well, just to show that everything is Allah. And there are many other stories that when the arif is in gnostic, is in state of fana, the religious obligation becomes sakit from him, they're removed from him. Many other stories. So we've exposed this in Malfuzat Hakim al-Ummad volume number 1. We've shown that Ashraf Ali Thanvi believes that Allah has conferred the ruling on the world to the Ghaus, Qut Abdal, and the Majzu people have been given the matters Takwini Umurs, meaning who's going to be the ruler in the country. It is decided by insane people. And he quotes the story of Ishraqi Sahab, that the Majzu people, the insane people, they decided to keep the British rule in India or not. So the insane people, they are controlling the universe according to Ashraf Ali Thanvi. And likewise in Sawani Qasmi, it is written that one of the Sufi, during his fight against the British, starting to run away, and he said, because he saw Al-Khidr in the British army, Al-Khidr, the companion of Musa, Na'udhu Billah. So this is their belief. Ashraf Thanvi wrote, sometimes the Kafir, the Majzu people, they side with the Kuffar, and they have the Kuffar to fight against the Muslim. But the rule, because they are insane, the Sharia doesn't apply to them. So Na'udhu Billah, Allah has given powers to insane people to rule the world. So we have exposed their creeds. This is Masnavi, Khaled Masnavi, Ashraf Ali Thanvi's translation and explanation of the Masnavi of Jalaluddin Rumi. And we've shown the scans that are present on my webpage. There's a pornographic story of a woman doing zina with a donkey, and she uses a stick to do zina with the donkey so the donkey doesn't penetrate her fully, and her servant the master of this slave saw her and she tried to do it, but she didn't use the stick, and she was killed by the penis of the donkey. And this is all translated by Ashraf Ali Thanvi in his translation of Masnavi. एक बंदी ने गधे से अपने ऊपर डाल दिया, शहवत की कसर, शहवत से ज्यादा तकलीफ से उस गधी से जिमा की आदत डाल दी थी। गधे से आदमी को जिमा सीख लिया था। इस हीले साजी बंदी के पास एक कद्दू था जिसको उसके अंदाजे से मुताबिक अपने जकर में पनाया था। पढ़ने से जकर को कद्दू पहुंच देती थी ताकि घासने के वक्त आधा जकर जाए। Meaning she would use a stick and she would beat the donkey so only half of the penis would enter the slave girls. And there's the rest of the story, that the slave master, the owner of the snake, saw the donkey going weak, and then she spied on her servant and saw that the servant was doing zina with the donkey, and she wanted as well to do zina with the donkey, but she didn't use the stick. And then at the end he compares this stick with the stick of Musa alayhi salam, na'udhu, saying everybody who has a stick is not Musa. And I mean, na'udhu billah, and there's many other pornographic stories in Masnawi stories, like Abu Yazid Bastami, instead of going to Hajj, a Sufi Sheikh tells him to do 7 times tawaf around him, and this is better than doing Hajj. Stories in Masnawi about Musa and Pharaoh being friends. If the colors disappears, then they're friends, and na'udhu billah, many other fake stories. So because we expose who these people are, I mean, they have no other way than making false accusation against us, instead of replying to this. Even in the book of in this book Al-Wa Thalatha, which is published by the Deobandi, the story of a naked saint and woman and man going to this naked saint Bahr, and he would fulfill their needs. So naked people fulfilling their needs, this is sold by the Deobandi, this is their religion. You see, they're not even taking the stories out from the book, they're proud of their naked stories. So because we've exposed these people, now they have no other way than to make false allegations against us. And even, I mean, to show the total despair of them, when Mirza Qadiani during his time, when the scholars replied to him, like Rashid Ahmad Gangohi and others, or the Deobandi, the Brelvis, or the other Sufis, none of them accused Mirza of being Ahl Hadith. They all acknowledged he was a Hanafi, and he was even a Sufi. So these accusations are very recent, you see, because what they did is Molana Safraz Safdar Khan in Pakistan, in his book Al-Kalam al-Mufid fi Ithbat Taqlid, he made this claim, and other in recent time, Brelvi and others, they made this claim. Then one of Molana Safdar Khan's son made a book. So what he did was, he showed, oh, this is a masla of Ahlul Hadith, this is the masla of Mirza Qadiani. So, trying to prove that he was Ahlul Hadith. So Mirza Qadiani recites behind Surat Fatiha behind the Imam, Ahlul Hadith recite Fatiha behind Imam. Mirza Qadiani joins the prayer in travel, Ahlul Hadith join the prayer in travel. Mirza Qadiani does this, and this is totally wrong, because there are many Hanafi scholars like Shah Waliullah, Abdul Hayy Lukhnavi, Abul Hasan Kabir Sindhi, many others, Muhammad Hayat Sindhi, Ibn al-Humam, Ibn Tahawi, we can quote 15-20 of the cases leaving the Hanafi mazhab, and we can say they're not Hanafi then. Even some of the Deobandi scholars, sometimes they oppose the Hanafi mazhab and they go out of the Hanafi mazhab. For instance, Molana Taqi Usmani, in his Takmila of Sahih Muslim, Fath al-Mulim, Takmila Fath al-Mulim, because Molana Shabir Usmani has done the first volumes, and he couldn't finish the explanation of Sahih Muslim. So Molana Taqi Usmani completed it. And speaking about the topic of Khiyarul Majlis, he said, I'm not convinced by the Tawilat of the Ahnaf. And he quoted at the end the saying of Abdul Hayy Lukhnavi, showing the preference for the Shafi'i madhab on this issue. And likewise, we can quote many other instances, like it is well known that the Deobandi Ashraf Ali Thanvi and others, for the topic of Mafqud al-Khabar, the one whose husband has disappeared, they don't take the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, they take the opinion of Imam Malik. You see, because for Imam Abu Hanifa it is like he should wait for 60, 70 or 80 years, something like this. They take the opinion of Imam Malik, which is based on Umar radiallahu anhu's ijtihad, that it is a few years. She should, lady whose husband has disappeared, she has no news, after a few years she can marry according to the Maliki fiqh. And many other issues, like in I'la Sunan of Molana Zafar Thanvi, he quotes on the topic of Sajda Tilawa on one in Surah Hajj, and he agrees with that actually the hadith with the madhab other than Abu Hanifa's madhab. And Molana Anwar Shah Kashmiri, like for Taraweeh and Tahajjud, he says it's the same prayer. So, and there are many other instances. I mean, it will be too long. So we can do, like, if we quote 15 topics, 20 topics, Ibn al-Humam going out of the Hanafi mazhab, and then quote the Ahlul Hadith mazhab and say, oh, Ibn al-Humam was Ahlul Hadith. He says that the one who kills, the dhimmi, who insults the Prophet ﷺ, his dhimma is broken and he should be killed. So he went outside the Hanafi mazhab. And many other stances, Imam Abu Jafar Tahawi, he says the one who does Hajj for his final tawaf, even after the time of Asr, he can do it, while the Hanafi fiqh forbids it. For them, if you have done the tawaf final, you should wait up to Maghrib, then pray the last 2 rak'ah. But for Abu Jafar Tahawi, no. According to the hadith, so Imam Abu Jafar Tahawi used to act sometimes on hadith, like Imam Abu Hanifa told them, if you find the authentic hadith against my madhab, leave my opinion, and this is what his students used to do. This is what the Hanafi scholars generally used to do. But because the Deobandi Brelvi, they don't systematically do it, so they believe that a good Hanafi should always do it. You see, like the Abul Hasan Nadvi or Dr. Akram Nadvi here in the UK, they join the prayers. So can we say, no, they're not Hanafi anymore? This is not how it works. I mean, in all the madhab, you've got scholars going out of the madhab because of the dalil. And it doesn't... So likewise for Mirza Qadiani, he was Hanafi. We have the quotes from his Mirza Qadiani's books and his son's books. And it's saying he's a Hanafi, you see. So this shows totally the falsehood of the claims made by the Deobandis and Brelvis in our time that Mirza Qadiani was Ahlul Hadith. I mean, many of the Sufis of India, Pakistan, they used to leave their madhab, as mentioned by Molana Jivan. Some of them used to come outside, used to pray Fatiha behind the Imam. Some of them used to, like Mirza Qadi Thanala Panipati and his teacher, Naqshbandi teacher Mirza Janan, he had a Risala al-Amal bil Hadith. So everybody is well known fact in India, Pakistan, the Abdul Hayy Lukhnavi, many other scholars, they used to leave the Hanafi mazhab for stronger dalil, and it doesn't make them Ahlul Hadith. The Ahlul Hadith are clearly known who they are. They don't stick to one madhab, and they're proud to say they're Ahlul Hadith, you see. You cannot just take their fatwas of some people and just say Mirza had the same fatwa so that they have the same madhab. This shows totally despair of these people and how desperate, how desperate they are. So we will show inshallah in this lecture that Mirza Qadiani not only was a Hanafi, quoting from his 6 quotes from his books, clearly leaving no doubt he's a Hanafi, and we also have 5 examples to show he was a hardcore Sufi. He was a follower of Ibn Arabi, and his books are filled with references and quotes to Sufism, Sufi saints, Sufi books, and he also believes in Hazar Nazir, as said by Molana Muhammad Hussain Nelvi in his book Nida al-Haq, which is a well-known book. Muhammad Hussain Nelvi's Mamati Deobandi, and he refuted Molana Sarfraz Safdar's book Taskina Sudur. So in his book Nida al-Haq, he quoted one of Mirza Qadiani's books saying Prophet is Hazar Nazir, like the Brelvi, he's omnipresent. So Mirza Qadiani was a Sufi. Mirza Qadiani, in one of his books, Haqiqatul Wahi, is a book of him. He gathered what he claimed to have received as verses from Allah, some of them in Arabic, some of them in Persian, in Urdu. And one of the verses was in Arabic that if translated, that's what he claimed, that he said, Allah said to him that if you desire something, you say kun and it will happen. أن تقول لشيء كن فيكون. So so this verse, he claimed Allah revealed it to me, and this, that Allah gave him the power of kun fayakun in his book Haqiqatul Wahi, and this is the creed of the Sufi. This is the creed of Sharani, he claims that his teacher Al-Khawas was given the power of kun fayakun. He says something be and the thing was, but his teacher left this power out of respect, na'udhu for Allah. He left Allah govern the world and decide out of respect. Meaning else, Allah had given him the power to rule, but out of respect to Allah, he said, Allah, you decide and decide things I don't want to decide and govern the world. And likewise, another misguided Sufi, Yusuf Nabahani, whose book Jami Karamat Awliya has been summarized in Urdu by the Deobandi, he also, said that one of the Sufis, Muhammad Dinaburi, was given the power of kun fayakun, but out of respect to Allah, he left it. He didn't use it. So, and this is totally misguided book, Jami Karamat Awliya. It has stories, and likewise Shahrani's book, Tabaqat, they both quote stories of naked saints doing khutbah, and saints doing zina with donkeys. Many other, Jami Karamat Awliya has a story of a teacher who, to punish his student, extended his penis and starting whipping his student with his penis. So these beliefs are the beliefs of the Sufi. What Mirza believed was the belief of the Sufis. He used to believe in the Chalisman, like the Brailvis, like on the 40th day, when someone dies, you make food in your house and you give it to the poor people. He quoted like he believed in the Ghaus Qutb Abdal, that these people rule the world, like the Sufis, Ibn Arabi, Al-Hallaj, and Hakim Tirmidhi, all these Turuq Sufiya. So Ibn Arabi, and also he took a lot from the creed of the Sufi to make his claim that he was Al-Masih, because the Sufi claimed that, like Ibn Arabi, that someone can transfer his soul into someone else. This is called Aqid al-Buruz. You see, transferring the soul, appearing in someone else. So the Sufis, Ibn Arabi, Abdul Karim Jili, we're going to see his quotes. Abdul Karim Jili said the Prophet appeared in Shibli, and Shibli said, La ilaha illallah, Shibli Rasulullah. They said Prophet appears in other people, other Sufis appear in other Sufis. And even there's a quote of Mashaykh Chist of Molana Zakaria Kandhalvi. He said, Khwajah Baqi Billah transferred his soul into one of his murid, and the murid couldn't stand it. The two souls united, and the murid died. So what Mirza Qadiani, the material he used to make his claim was Sufi material, like Ibn Arabi saying, the Nubuwa, it is only the Nubuwa of law-giving, prophethood of law-giving, which is finished. But as for general prophethood, it carries on under Wilaya, and we have many quotes of Ibn Arabi, and inshallah I'm also going to give the scans so people can read Futuhat Makkiyah, 4 or 5 scans of Futuhat Makkiyah, to see that what Ibn Arabi is saying, what Sharani is saying. So basically, Mumtazul Haq, instead of blaming the true people who misguided Mirza Qadiani, meaning Ibn Arabi, Al-Jili, Sharani, and all these Sufi people, he accuses the people of Tawheed, those who reject this khurafat. So we request Molana Mumtazul Haq to come and comment on these sayings of Ibn Arabi, and also what I'm going to give 5 examples at the end, inshallah, in which I will show that the Mirza Qadiani had many Sufi beliefs that the Deobandi share. Like Mirza Qadiani used to isolate for 40 days, the Deobandi do it. Mirza Qadiani sits on grave to do Kashf Qubur, the Deobandi do it, promote it. I've got many of their quotes. He used to believe that the Sufi can see the Prophet's face in Kashf and authenticate hadith through this way. Mirza Qadiani believed in it. They have many other, the Prophet and the dead people, after the death they come back and they speak to people not in the state of dream but in state of wakefulness. Mirza Qadiani said the same, I have met the Prophet not in a state of sleep. And the Deobandi, I will quote 2 or 3 of their quotes. The Prophet came to Deoband, he spoke to that, and he looked at the records. The Prophet was very happy. There's a quote in Fazail Durud in which the Prophet came and cured putting his hand on the belly of a woman, and he cured her. And there's also a story of Qasim Nanudvi coming back in Arwasalas after his death to settle a dispute in Darul Deoband. And Ashraf al-Sawani, there's a story of the father or grandfather of Ashraf Ali Thanvi coming after his death. So we will show that actually the Deobandi and Mirza Qadiani shared a lot of his creed. That is why at the beginning we will see when they didn't make takfir of Mirza Qadiani, they excused him when he first made his claims, and none of them said that he was Ahlul Hadith. They all excused him because his quotes were Sufi quotes. They refused to debate with him, Rashid Gangu and his students, because they didn't want to debate about Ibn Arabi and all this, because it is the common source. Ibn Arabi is the Sheikh Akbar of everyone. And we will show that the reality, that they both share Sufism. That's why they were soft on him at the beginning, why the Ahlul Hadith were the first to declare him kafir, and they, Molana Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, traveled all India together, the fatwa scholars, to declare Mirza Qadiani kafir. So this is the truth. The truth is Mirza Qadiani was a Hanafi. Okay, sometimes he was living the Hanafi mazhab. Even he says he's only living the Qadiani, he's only living the Hanafi madhab when it is in accordance with the Hanafic usulul fiqh. He's not living the Hanafi rules, so he's not living the Hanafi madhab. All is coming out of the Mirza Qadiani, it is according to the Hanafi usulul fiqh. So it is like all the other Hanafi scholars, like I've missed some, like Hassan Shurun Bulali in his book Nurul Ida, he says that in Salatul Janaza one should read Surat Fatiha, and for him, because for the Hanafi mazhab you shouldn't read Surah Fatiha in Salatul Janaza, only with the niyyah of dua if you want to read it. But he said even without the niyyah of dua, like just to recite Surah Fatiha, you can read it. So every Hanafi scholars sometimes had their own tahqiqat, and they used to come out of the Hanafi madhab. If you look at Shah Waliullah's Hujjatul al-Baligha, you can easily see 30-40 cases he's judging outside the Hanafi madhab. Abdul Hayy Lukhnavi, you easily, Maulana Irshadullah Kathari has a book about Abdul Hayy Lukhnavi, and he quotes like 20, 30, maybe 25 cases in which Abdul Hayy Lukhnavi went outside the Hanafi mazhab, but none of the Deobandi will claim that Abul Hayy Lukhnavi was Ahlul Hadith. But for Mirza, because just he went outside the Hanafi mazhab, he becomes Ahlul Hadith. So first I'm going to explain the scans in my book, because I have the Urdu scans. I have the Urdu scans from different books. These books, they have been downloaded from alislam.org, which has all the books of Mirza Qadiani, his students, all of them, all these books. You can download them. You see, they've scanned them. They've put all of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani's books online. So you can, below the lecture, I will give a link to the direct PDF of these books. So anyone who wants to check the quotes can download these books from the direct link to the books. And I will also make a different PDF containing all these pages. So if someone wants to read directly the pages, it has the name of the book, the page, the volume. Or someone wants to download the books from the Qadiani webpage, and he wants to go to the page, I will indicate this. So this is why, it shows the despair of Molana Mumtaz ul-Haq, because if Mirza was Qadiani, he would write somewhere, I am Ahlul Hadith. His son would write it. But Mumtaz ul-Haq totally failed to mention any quote. So it shows the weakness of his claim. Because someone has a quote, who are you going to believe? Someone who's bringing the proof, the quote, or someone who's just making a claim without, not substantiated with any evidence? So, inshallah, so I have like 15 pages. This will be a PDF. Below the lecture on YouTube, there will be a link to this PDF. Qadiani scans. There will be another PDF, Sufi scans, having Ibn Arabi and Sharani's quotes. And all the quotes of the Deobandis are present. I will give a link also below the lecture, but they're all present. So, and I will read as well from the books of the Deobandis to show the reality of the matter. So first, because so some people, they don't know the reality, anything about Mirza Qadiani. Just a brief introduction to Mirza Qadiani. He was born in 1835. In Qadian. His father was a doctor and a landlord. So he was a rich man. His father was a doctor. He had many lands. After finishing his study in 1864, he studied Arabic, Farsi, medicine like his father. Another field, he started to work in an office in Sialkot. So he was working as a clerk in an office. So after 4 years, he left it and started to read more religious books, and he's starting to do religious debates. You see? So he started to debate against Hindus like Ahmadida, Dr. Zakir Naik, I guess Hindus, Christians, because at the time the British used to rule India. So he used to debate them. Once in 1868 or 1869, he was the Hanafi debater who debated Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, who was a big Ahlul Hadith scholar, a student of Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi. And he debated with him about matters of fiqh issues. So he was the Hanafi, he was chosen by the Ahnaf to debate Muhammad Hussain Batalvi about Masail fiqh. So it clearly shows that he was a clear Hanafi. So I have the quote in Urdu, I will read it. So the quote is in Siratul Mahdi, written by Bashir Ahmad, Mirza Bashir Ahmad, who is the son of Ghulam Ahmad. So he wrote in Siratul Mahdi, it is in volume 2, on page 379. It is in page 379, but if you download the PDF, it's 383, because there's a difference between the numbering on the page and the number of the PDF because of the introduction. So Siratul Mahdi, if you go page 379 of the book or 383 of the PDF. So he write, एक दफ़ा क़ब्ल दावत मसीहत लोगों ने हज़रत मऊद अलैहिस्सलाम को मौलवी हुसैन बटालवी के मुकाबले में बाद हानफी और वहाबी मसाइल में बहस के लिए बुलाया. He is saying before his claim of being the Masih, the Ahnaf people invited Mirza Qadiani to debate against Maulvi Muhammad Hussain Batalvi about Hanfi or Wahhabi Masail. Wahhabi, they were saying it's Ahlul Hadith. So obviously Muhammad Hussain Batalvi wasn't the Hanfi. And then he carries on telling what happened in the debate. Mirza Qadiani couldn't answer and people said he ran away. So this is a direct link to Siratul Mahdi. Before his claim of prophethood, he was debating on behalf of the Hanfis against Muhammad Hussain Batalvi. So it comes from the Qadiani source. Everybody can judge Molana Mumtaz's false claims. So in 1879, so at this time already, Mirza was already known as a Hanafi debater. In 1879, he started his tahriq to publish the book Barahin Ahmadiyya. And this book's aim was to show the truthfulness of Islam and to reply to all the Christians and Hindus' main objections against Islam and other religions' objection against Islam. And he claimed, I will write 25 volumes against my book showing the truthfulness of Islam. So he made large appeals in different cities of India to collect money to publish his work. But in 1884, he only published 4 volumes of the Barahin Ahmadiyya, a book which was praised by all the scholars in Hanafi, Ahlul Hadith, because it defended Islam. In 1885, obviously after writing these books, he's starting being popular. Mirza started to claim himself as the Mujaddid of his era, like the Prophet said, in each century there will be a Mujaddid. He wrote his book Sarma Chasham Arya against the Hindus and debated with many Hindus in this year. So he became, at this time, he was famous. He was known to be a famous Hanafi debater, having ilham from Allah. You see, in 1888, he announced that he would take Muridin and become their peer. He's starting taking bay'ah from people, and this is the Sufi bay'ah. That's why we say to the people, he was a Sufi. He was taking bay'ah. The Ahlul Hadith Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi didn't used to take or give bay'ah from Sufis. And also this also shows that the Deobandis as well are not Hanafi, because on Sufi bay'ah, sitting in the khanqahs, sitting on graves, trying to speak to the soul of the dead, seeking help and anything, they don't have anything from Imam Abu Hanifa. The Deobandi Hayatis, they're not even Hanafi. They have their fabricated a separate religion, which there's no mention of it. Imam Abu Hanifa or in his students' book of Ahkam al-Bay'ah or Ahkam this and that. So this shows that the Deobandi as well, they're not true Hanafis. And we will show inshallah in a further lecture about the fraud of taqlid and how they behave, But he was taking a Sufi bay'ah. In 1889, the famous Hanafi Pir from Ludhiana, Ahmad Jan, a Hanafi, became a murid of Mirza. So you see famous Hanafi Sufi started to give him bay'ah. In the same year, the extreme Hanafi Muqallid, Pir Sirajul Haq Nu'mani Saharanpuri became a murid of Mirza. It's all to do with Sufism. In 1891, this is the year Mirza claimed to be the Masih and the Mahdi. So anyone praising Mirza before this 1891, he shouldn't be blamed, because the Deobandi, the Brelvi, everybody used to praise him. You see, was like Ahmad Dida, Dr. Zakir Naik. So in 1891, Mirza started to claim that Isa alayhi salam actually died, and he was the Masih that was announced in books of Ahadith, and he was the promised Mahdi. He said the Mahdi is not a different person, he's the Masih who will come. And he said, but Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, he died, and I am the new Masih. You see? So we'll see all his claim is based on the Sufi. At this time, he didn't claim prophethood. He said, I'm Mathil Masih. I am similar to the Masih. And this was based on the Sufi belief. The prophets appearing in Sufis, or others people, as prophets appearing in other Sufis, or another Sufi Sheikh appearing in his student. This is based on Sufism. For anybody who can read, Mirza Qadiani's 25 volume of his Ruhani Khazain are published. They're available online on alislam.org. So everybody can see he's speaking about his creed of Masilam of Al-Masih, and how he quotes from Sufis about their creed. And so when he made his claim, Muhammad Hussain Batalvi started after a few months to debate him, and he debated him in many cities, and the debates of Ludhiana are very famous. So wherever Mirza, what he started doing after 1891, he would go to different cities, publish pamphlets, and call all the scholars to debate with him, Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, Ahmad Raza Khan, all the others, Pir Mehar Ali Shah, all the big scholars and Sufis, to debate with him. But Muhammad Hussain Batalvi will follow him and go wherever other people refuse to debate him. So he was, and then after debating him, he was the first who brought Mirza's statement to Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi, and Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi was the first to declare Mirza Ghulam Qadiani to be an apostate. The fatwa is present in Fatwa Naziriya with the date. On the same year he made his claim. He didn't start to claim he was a prophet. Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi already declared to be a kafir just because of his claim that Isa died, and he is the new Isa announced in the hadith. And Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi said, all his Jamaat are Kharij al-Islam, they're all apostates. While the others at that time, they didn't declare him to be apostate. They're further on after, when he claimed he was a prophet on his own. And I have the quote from Siratul Mahdi, volume 2, page 373. So from the PDF, it's 377. He says, Khaksar arz karta hai ki jab 26 March 1891, meaning in 1891, on the 26th of March, को हजरत मसीह मौऊद ने अपना दावा मसीहत का ऐलान किया, इश्तिहार शाया किए. When he started to make his claim of being the Masih, and he published pamphlets, उस वक्त आप लुधियाना में मुकीम थे. He was in Ludhiana, in India. और कई माह तक वहीं मुकीम रहे, and for many months he stayed there. इस जगह पे 20 July 1891, meaning in July, few months after he made his claim in March, and in July already, you see, from July the 20 to July 29, he had debates with Maulvi Muhammad Hussain Batalvi. Mubasa hua, jisme sargajiz Risala Haq Ludhiana mein shaka, and they published a book, Risala al-Haq, which is available on the Deobandi webpage. So already, the debates, few months after his claims, Molana Muhammad Hussain Batalvi came to Ludhiana and challenged him and had a debate about Isa alayhi salam didn't die. And we will speak later on about this first debate, because this first debate shows that Mirza Qadiani was following the Hanafi Usul al-Fiqh, because he was using the dalil that the verse in the Quran, Inni mutawafika, meaning I will take you away. The meaning of mutawafika, literal meaning is I will take you away, raise you. Allah said to Isa alayhi salam. But Mirza Qadiani said, no, mutawaffika means I will make you die. You see? And he says, no, it doesn't mean the meaning is take you away, and the metaphorical meaning is dying. The real meaning is I will elevate you, take you away. And then he quoted many ahadith showing that Isa alayhi salam was raised alive. And Mirza said, but these ahadith oppose the Quran. And he quoted Hanafi usul al-fiqh saying, when a hadith opposes the Quran, they should not be acted upon. And in the debate, he brought the Hanafi book of usul al-fiqh, Tawdi al-Talwih. So it shows that he was following the Hanafi rules. And he will even mention in many times that the Ahlul Hadith rules of applying the hadith opposing the Quran are wrong. And one should not act upon a hadith that oppose the Quran. And I have the book Usul al-Shashi. We will see this is the Hanafi, the conditions to act on Khabar Ahad. We will speak about this shortly, inshallah, later on. So this is said, the first one to debate him was Maulvi Hussain Batalvi, Muhammad Hussain Batalvi. So in 1901, and also we'll have the quote from Mirza that the first to declare him kafir was Mir Nazir Hussain Delvi. And Mirza Qadiani even said all those who declared him kafir afterwards following Mir Nazir Hussain and Muhammad Hussain Batalvi will have the sins of all who declared me kafir, because they incited the other scholars to declare me kafir. So in 1901, Mirza altered, he changed the meaning of Khatm Nubuwat, and he claimed to be Ummati Nabi. He claimed to be a prophet from the Ummah of the Prophet and a messenger similar to other prophets. And that's when everybody declared him to be kafir. And Mirza died in 1901 in Lahore and was buried in Qadiani. So now let's see the accusations, false allegations of Molana Mumtaz. He said Mirza grew up with Sheikh Muhammad Hussain Batalvi. He studied with the same teacher in 1884. Mirza's second wife was Ahl Hadith. Mir Nazir Hussain read the nikah. Mirza was Ahl Hadith. His student and first caliph of successor of the Qadiani, Nuruddin, was Ahl Hadith. So like I've told you, he failed to any quote of Mirza Qadiani's book or students or book written before his claim saying I'm Ahlul Hadith. There's no quote. So all these allegations are baseless. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Surah Baqarah, verse 111, وَقَالُوا لَنْ يَدْخُلَ الْجَنَّةَ إِلَّا مَنْ كَانَ هُودًا أَوْ نَصَارَى تِلْكَ أَمَانِيُّهُمْ قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And they said, the Jews and Christians, none shall enter paradise unless he be a Jew or Christian. Allah says, these are their own desires. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, produce your proof if you are truthful. Allah subhanahu, that's why Allah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stresses upon the fact, he tells the mushrik, the Ahlul Kitab, to bring their proof if you are truthful. So people should speak with the dalil, and every layman people can see who's speaking with dalil and who's speaking with desire and emotion. All of Mirza's claims are based on conjecture and qiyas, analogies. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blamed the mushrik to follow conjectures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Yunus verse 36, وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ إِلَّا ذَنَّ إِنَّ ذَنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا إِنَّ الْعَلِيمُ بِمَا يَفْعَلُونَ. And most of them follow not but conjecture. Certainly conjecture can be of no avail against the truth. Allah is all aware of what they do. So studying with Ahl Hadith is not to prove that he was Ahl Hadith, or the Ahl Hadith influenced him in making his false religion. Because Mirza also studied with Hanafi people. So if just the mere fact of studying with someone makes you Ahl Hadith or misguides you, then the Ahnaf could have also misguided him. Likewise, marrying Ahl Hadith is not a proof that the Ahl Hadith influenced him. Else his first wife was Hanafi. Maybe we can say, but we don't accuse without proof, that his Hanafi wife influenced him to make his false religion. So Mirza Qadiani, I've explained before, like Molana Mumtaz in 1884, it was before his claim of being Masih. 1891 he made his claim. So anyone marrying him before, because obviously Mirza Qadiani, before making his religion, he wanted to have a Hanafi followers, and he wanted to take some Ahl Hadith followers. So maybe that's why he wanted to marry Ahl Hadith and was not too harsh muqallid, so he was Hanafi in order to get the Hanafis, and he was also coming out of the mazhab. Maybe his aim, Allahu Alam, was to take from each group. He had Barelvi beliefs, he had Deobandi beliefs, you see. And even on Asma wa Sifat, there are many tafsir of Ghulam Ahmad on alislam.org, or of his sons, or even in English, Qadiani. We can see, everybody can read them. I've read quickly some few on Istiwa. They don't believe there's a physical arsh. For them it's a metaphor. They don't believe Allah has a hand, like the Ahlul Hadith said. So he didn't have the Aqidah. He was doing ta'wil of the Sifat. He was quoting books of Sufis. But even, I mean, this is why Mumtaz Ulaq, there are three possibilities he has to explain. Either he has to say that the Masail of Ahlul Hadith misguided Mirza, meaning then they did Masail of Ahlul Hadith doing Raful Yadain, reading Fatiha behind Imam, joining the prayers in travel, and others. They're done by the Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik. So Mumtaz Ulaq cannot say that Imam Ahmad taking their opinions will misguide, can misguide someone to make a different religion and become an apostate. So if it's not the fiqh of the Ahlul Hadith that's wrong, then maybe he can say, oh, because he left taqlid, he abandoned strict taqlid, and he started to act on hadith. So abandoning strict taqlid can misguide you. Then what about all the others? You see, Shah Waliullah and all the list I've quoted. I mean, the problem with this statement is taqlid is misguiding. Taqlid, even according to the muqallid, it is only in fiqh. It has nothing to do in aqidah. For them, taqlid in aqidah is not allowed. So doing taqlid, not doing taqlid has nothing to do with the fiqh. It has to do with the fiqh opinions. You see, whether you do Raful Yadain or not, or these issues. Else, will Molana Mumtaz Ulaq say that those who do taqlid, they don't become apostate, they don't do shirk? Then what about the Barelvis? What about the books of your scholars written against the Barelvi, saying they're doing shirk, hazir, nazir, ilmul ghaib? Or what about the Barelvi dancing on graves, taking drugs, the sayings of Muhammad Yar Faridi? If Muhammad believes Muhammad to be, agar Muhammad Yar Faridi Muhammad sallallahu ko khuda manta hai, usko Musliman samjhe daghabaz nahi. And all the sayings of the Barelvis, you see that the one saying Al-Hayy wal-Qayyum will come in the form of Muhammad, and Muhammad sallallahu actually was Khuda. All these people, they were people of taqlid. So if the people of taqlid can do shirk, taqlid, doing taqlid or not doing taqlid has nothing to do with worshipping graves, dancing on graves, Ya Ghaus Aghisni, Ya Ghaus Shayanillah. But we don't do this. We don't say it's Abu Hanifa who taught them to worship graves. So this saying, so the third possibility is not acting on the Masail of Ahlul Hadith that misguided Mirza. That's not living taqlid or not living taqlid, because people doing taqlid still can become apostate or do shirk. And others left strict taqlid, like Ibn al-Humam and Lughnawi, they didn't become apostate. And then the third possibility only remains, that it's the individuals of the Ahlul Hadith, the leaders of the Ahlul Hadith, who incited Mirza Qadiani to make these claims. And we've seen the first one to debate him was Muhammad Hussain Batalvi, and the first one who made takfir of him was Mir Nazir Hussain Delvi, and it was because of the testimonies of Molana Batalvi that Mir Nazir Hussain Delvi made takfir. And so this is, I'm going to quote now, Mirza Qadiani himself acknowledging that the first Awwal Mukaffirin, we have the title, according to the tongue of this cursed Mirza Qadiani, we have the honor of being the first people to make takfir of him. It is written, Ruhani Khazain, volume 5, in the book Aina Kamalat Islam, page 30 of the book, and it is 31 of the book, And this is in on the PDF. If you download it, it's 5051. So you type on the PDF below 5051, you go to the statement. So in the introduction of his book, Insan Kamil he say, और इस बिना पर इस आजिज का नाम भी काफिर और मुल्हिद और जिंदगी का दज्जाल रखा गया. He said, oh people, because of this that they claimed I was kafir, mulhid, heretic and a dajjal. बल्कि दुनिया के तमाम काफिरों दज्जालों से बदतर है. But they said I was worse than all the kafir and dajjal. और ये फितना अंदाजी का असल बानी व मबादी, the real founder of this fitna, एक शख्स साहब है, मोहम्मद हुसैन नाम है, जो बटाला जिले गोदासापुर में रहते हैं. He said the real founder of this fitna against me is Muhammad Hussain Batalvi. उस ज़माने से अक्सर मुल्ला तकफीर में मुस्ताजिल थे. He would hurry in doing takfir. And then he says he wrote his iftita to Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi, and he was the first to declare me a kafir, you see. और मियाँ नज़ीर हुसैन साहब देलवी ने कलम उठाया और बटालवी साहब के सिस्टम अपनी कुफर की शहादत से मुज़य्यन की. और मियाँ नज़ीर हुसैन ने जो उस आजिज़ को बिला तवक्कुफ व तामुल काफिर ठहराया, जो उससे पहले उनसे तरफ से साफ तहरीर. So he's saying the first one to declare me kafir was Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi, and he didn't do any tawakkuf, he didn't think, and he started to do takfir. And this first takwa, I mean, we have the testimony of Mirza. The first one to declare me kafir was, and the one who instigated this takfir against him were the Ahlul Hadith. And the first fatwa is present in the fatwa, 3-volume fatwa of Mian Nazir Hussain Delvi, Fatwa Nadhiriya. And the first volume, at the beginning, he is clearly saying, someone asked him, there's a question, क्या फरमाते उलमा दीन शुरू मसला है कि एक शख्स दावा करता है कि ईसा मौजूद है और ईसा मर गए हैं. इस दावा वाला काफिर है या मोमिन है जो शख्स से मुतक़िद हो जाए. जो शख्स उसके मुतक़िद है वो क्या. So he's asking someone who claims to be that Isa died and he's Isa, he's the Masih, Isa ibn Maryam died, what is his status and what is the status of his followers? So the answer is, जो शख्स अपने को ईसा मौऊद कहता है और ईसा सलाम का मौत का कायल है, वो बड़ा दज्जाल करदा मुनकरिन को ना हदीस मुतवातिरा है. So whoever claims this, he is a dajjal, a liar, the one denying the Quran. Then he quotes all the proof from the Quran, and then he says at the end, bil jumla, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah ka ye aqida ke Hazrat Isa salam zinda hai. All the Ahl Sunnah believe Prophet Isa alayhi salam is alive. जो शख्स उनकी हाथ का मुनकिर है वो मिसल यहूद मरदूद है. Whoever believes he died is similar to the cursed Jews. या फोत होने का कायला है, वो अपने आप को ईसा कहता है. ऐसा शख्स के कुफर में कोई शुबा नहीं. Whoever claims to be Isa, there is no doubt about he is being a kafir. और जो शख्स ऐसे एतकाद वालों का पैरवा, whoever follows such belief, वो भी इहाता इस्लाम से बाहर है. Meaning not only Mirza is kafir, but the people who follow him, that all apostate. So we have the honor to be the first one to declare him kafir, the first one to debate him, and the first one to humiliate this kafir. We stopped, I mean, mashallah, our mashaykh, they stopped this fitna being propagated on a higher level. And what we have, instead of, I mean, Allah is the one who rewards, but instead of people acknowledging the merits of Ahlul Hadith, they say, oh no, he was Ahlul Hadith, they influenced him. On the YouTube, Mumtaz Zulak, they say Ahlul Hadith influenced on Mirza Qadiani. Na'udhu billah, and Allah will judge these liars. So such lies, because inshallah there will be judgment. Every little statement said will be judged. So now we're going to have quotes. And at this time, I don't have the book, but maybe inshallah in the future I'll have. In Maqabis Rashidi and the Malfuzat of Sharani Thanvi, they both said at the beginning, when he claimed just to be Masih, Isa and Mahdi, they didn't do takfir. They said because he has a ta'wil. And only when after he claimed prophethood, then he's a kafir. And this is also said in that book, Muhannad al-Mufannad of Khalil Ahmad Saharanpuri. It is in Urdu, Aqad Ulama Deoband. He says in it as well that at the beginning we did not declare him to be kafir, but when his claims became clear, then at the end we used to excuse him at the beginning. And then it's at the end that we really declare him to be kafir. In this book, he also criticized Shaykh Muhammad Al-Wahhab. He says that we take istifada from the qubur of saints, and batin, if we take batin, if we use from the saints, and he has lots of this. Maybe I forgot to put the page, but anyway, in this book, I mean, inshallah, I'll give the scan. He says that at the beginning we used to excuse him in the book Muhannad al-Mufanad, but then it's present in Makatib Rashidiyah and in Malfuza Thanvi that at the beginning the Deobandis, they used to excuse Mirza, and while at that time Mian Nazir Hussain although had already done takfir. So now when this issue is sorted out, the historical clarification, explanation have been made. Now let's look quickly at the direct cause of Mirza. You see, Mirza said, Suratul Mahdi, Hisadom, part 2, page 334. Sorry, just one. Volume 2, page 334. He's saying that Mirza Qadiani, his son Bashir Ahmad, saying, after mentioning the dispute between the Deobandi and Ahlul Hadith, he's saying, उसूलन आप हमेशा अपने आप को हनफी जाहिर फरमाते थे. आपने अपने लिए किसी ज़माने में भी अहले हदीस का नाम नहीं पसंद फरमाया था. Meaning that usulan he was always showing himself as a Hanafi. Not at any time he liked the name of Ahle Hadith. So someone who doesn't like the name of Ahle Hadith, how can you accuse him of being Ahle Hadith? And he said usulan he was always showing himself as a Hanafi. So it's page 338 of the PDF and 334 of the book, volume 2, you see. And we will see, inshallah, he was following the Hanafi Husul al-Fiqh on Khabar Ahad. Then after, I mean, obviously, he says, his son says, Hana ki agar aqaid aur ta'amul ke liye se dekhe to aapka tariq Hanafiyon ki nisbat ahl hadith se zyada milta tha. He's saying, but if we look at the creed and his methodology, so his it would be closer to the Ahl Hadith than the Ahnaf. But this claim is false, you see, because we've seen his creed is a Sufi creed, and maybe he's leaving the just on his methodology, maybe he will leave the mazhab. At that time it might have been seen as more Ahlul Hadith methodology than the hardcore Hanafi Muqallid. But this is false as well, because Mirza was telling he was a Muwahid just to get people following him, but we will see he is a hardcore mushrik, grave worshipper and everything else. Then on the same page there's a statement, Maulvi Sher Ali Sahab ne mujhse bayan kiya ki ek dafa I mean, we will understand from the other statement that he said I'm a Hanfi, even if his son judges that on Aqaid Ta'amul he might be closer to it, but he never claimed this and he never acted on Ahlul Hadith creed or Minhaj. After it's written, Maulvi Sher Ali Sahab ne mujhe bayan kiya ek dafa Maulvi ne Hazrat Masih Mahmud ki khidmat mein hazir hoke ख्वाहिश का मुलाकात किया. जब आपसे मिला तो बातों में से कई दफा कहा कि मैं हनफी हूँ. He said when Maulvi Sher Ali met Mirza Qadiani, many times he said, I am Hanafi. Someone is saying, I am Hanafi, is clear. और तकलीद को अच्छा समझता हूँ. I consider तकलीद to be a good thing. आपने फरमाया कि हम कोई हनफियों के खिलाफ नहीं, we're not opposed to Hanafis. बार मैं आपने हनफी होने का इज़हार किया. He manifested many times to be Hanfi. मैं चारों इमामों मुसलमानों के लिए भी तौर एक चार दीवारी के समझता हूँ. I consider the four imams to be like four wolves protesting people and them being muntashir and other. You see, we said the layman, they do not have to do ijtihad, so they have to follow an imam. And he says at the end, Hazrat Masih, यूं तो सारे इमामों की इज्जत करते थे. He would respect all the imam मगर इमाम अबू हनीफा को खुसूसियत के साथ इल्म मारिफत में बड़ा समझते थे. He would respect all the imams, but he would consider Imam Abu Hanifa to be the greatest in knowledge and cognizance, और उन कुव्वत इस्तिदलाल की बहुत तारीफ फरमाते थे. He would praise Imam Abu Hanifa's कुव्वत इस्तिदलाल, his extracting rulings and others. So this, we have on this page two quotes. One saying, I am Hanafi. The other saying, he never liked the name of Al-Hadith and he always liked the name of Hanafi. Now we have in his book Ruhani, Khazain, volume 19, we have, because there was a debate with Molana Batalvi and Chakralvi, who was a Hadith rejecter, so he, Mirza Qadiani, put his notes on this debate. He showed the sayings of Molana Batalvi, the saying of Chakralvi, the Hadith rejecter, and at the end he gave his own opinion and the opinion of his Jama'ah about who's right, who's wrong. And he writes in page 212 of the book, and in the 243 of the PDF if you download Ruhani Khazain volume 19. So he says, हमारी जमात का फर्ज होना चाहिए कि अगर कोई हदीस मुआरिज़े और मुखालिफ कुरान और सुन्ना ना हो तो हुआ कैसे भी अदना दर्जे की हदीस उस पर अमल करें. So he said, it is an obligation for us, if there is a hadith which does not oppose the Quran, so we should act upon it even if it's a low level of hadith. And if the topic, agar hadith mein koi is not found a hadith, neither in the Quran, इस सूरत में फ़िक़्ह हनफी पर अमल करें, क्योंकि इस फ़िरके की कसल खुदा का इरादा पर दलालत करती है. He said, if you don't find anything in Quran or hadith, you should act upon the Hanafi fiqh, because this fiqh shows a lot the intent of Allah is shown in this fiqh. So he says, I'm Hanafi. He never liked the name of Ahlul Hadith. In this one, Ruhani Khazain, he says, for our Jamaat, if the topic is not in the Quran and the Hadith, they should follow the Hanafi fiqh. So any Ahlul Hadith would never instruct his follower to follow the Hanafi fiqh. Likewise, one of the most famous debates in India, and the debates are about Raful Yadain, saying Amin loudly. About this, it is written in Siratul Mahdi of Mirza's son Bashir Ahmad, volume 1, page 147, and it is 153 of the PDF. Mian Abdullah Sanuri said, one of his Mirza's follower, he never saw Hazrat doing Raful Yadain, Amin bil Jar, and never reciting Bismillah bil Jar. Meaning, he never saw Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani doing Raful Yadain, saying Amin loudly or saying Bismillah loudly, because some of scholars say saying Bismillah loudly is also permissible. Sometimes you can avoid to read it, sometimes you can read it, both are permissible for our Ahlul Hadith scholars. So the quote is, in Urdu, Mian Abdullah साहब कहते थे कि उस दिन मैंने रफ़ुद्दीन तर्क कर दिया था, बल्कि आमिन बिल जर कहना छोड़ दिया था. और मियां अब्दुल्ला साहब बयान करते हैं कि हज़रत साहब को कभी रफ़ुद्दीन करते हुए आमिन बिल जर कहते हुए सुना और कभी बिस्मिल्लाह बिल जर पढ़ते हुए नहीं सुना. So one of his students who stayed many years with him never saw Mirza Qadiani doing Raful Yadain, and obviously this is one of the most debated topic. And after this, can anybody doubt Mirza Qadiani being a Hanafi? There's no doubt he was a Hanafi. And as well, there happened a debate in Ludhiana, the first one between Mirza Qadiani and this, when Muhammad Hussain Batalvi said that the hadith clearly said that Isa alayhi salam were raised alive, Mirza said, but this hadith opposes the Quran. What happened is Mirza Qadiani, he said, no, but in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet said, if a hadith opposes the Quran, then you should leave this hadith and act on the Quran. And Molana Muhammad Hussain Batalvi got so much angry, he said, this hadith is not in Bukhari, bring it. And he got so much angry, and this is recorded in two of this incident is recorded in Tazkiratu Mahdi of the Deobandi Sirajul Haq Nu'mani Saharanpuri in his book Tazkiratu Mahdi, page 165, first volume. I will give the link as well to download this book. It's yeah, 165 of the book, 167 of the PDF. And this is also mentioned in Siratul Mahdi, volume 3, page 495 and 497 of the PDF. So this is written in Tazkiratul Mahdi. Okay. जब हदीस है कि बुखारी में है कि रसूलुल्लाह ने फरमाया कि जो हदीस मेरी मुआरिज कुरान हो छोड़ दी जाए, कुरान को ले लिया जाए, उस पर मौलवी मोहम्मद हुसैन बटालवी निहायत गुस्से में आकर कहा कि हदीस बुखारी में नहीं है, और जो हदीस बुखारी में है तो मेरी 2 बीवी तलाक है. He said, if ever you find this hadith in Sahih Bukhari, my 2 wives are divorced. So this is mentioned in Tazkiratul Mahdi and in Siratul Mahdi volume 3, page 495. It is mentioned about this कि तलाशी हवाला बुखारी का वाक़या लुधियाना में है कि लुधियाना के मुबासा में मौलवी मोहम्मद हुसैन बटालवी ने बुखारी का एक हवाला तलब किया कि इन लुधियाना about seeking the quote from Sahih Bukhari. This happened in Ludhiana. Muhammad Hussain Batalvi said, bring Sahih Bukhari. And they didn't have Bukhari, but they brought the book, Hanafi book of Usul al-Fiqh, Tawdiyat al-Wi. And in this book, Tawdiyat al-Wi said this hadith is present in Bukhari. It was a mistake of the author of the Hanafi author, who falsely, by mistake, attributed this hadith to Sahih Bukhari. And this hadith is not in Sahih Bukhari. And it has been proven it is not in Sahih Bukhari. Because this hadith, to present the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, I guess the Quran is present in Usulul Anwar, it is present in Usul Shashi that I have in my hand, and it is present Tawdiyat al-Wi. It is not present Sahih Bukhari. So this shows that, Mirza Qadiani was following the Hanafi Usul al-Fiqh. You see, it is written in Usul Shashi that Shartul Amal bi Khabar al-Wahid, on which action you should act upon the Khabar Wahid. First, أن لا يكون مخالفا للكتاب والسنة مشهورة, should not oppose the Quran and the famous Sunnah Mashura. And second, أن لا يكون مخالفا لظاهر قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, Prophet said, تكثروا لكم الأحاديث بعدي فإن روي لكم أن أحاديث فاعرضوا على كتاب الله فما وفق فاقبلوه وما خالف فردوه. The hadith after me, this is a false hadith, but this is what they write. The Prophet said, there will be lots of hadiths after me, and if someone gives you hadith, check it with the book of Allah. If it agrees with it, accept it. If it opposes it, reject it. And the Deobandi publisher, in the notes, he said, ذكر الفتني في تذكرة الموضوعات. The Hanafi Muhaddis al-Fatni mentioned in his book of fabricated ahadith. ذكر الفتني في تذكرة الموضوعات. On page 28. So it is a fabricated hadith that the Ahnaf use not to restrict the... we need a different lecture to show why the Ahnaf, many hadiths, they say they're khabar ahad, they're adding things to the Quran, we do not accept them. Like if a zani who is not married does zina, in the Sahih Muslim it's written he should be expelled for a year after being whipped. But the Ahnaf say no, it is an addition to the Quran, it is a khabar ahad, we don't accept it. Like many others, at the beginning of Usul Shashi, he gives many examples, like we say for the raza'a, drinking milk, it's only after 5 times that if a baby drinks from his mother, then from another lady, the forbiddance based on milk drinking is established. But that's how the Quran says from drinking milk, and the hadith in Sahih Muslim is restricting the Quran. We don't accept this for khabar ahad. It's adding to the Quran, and many like the intention for wudu, the intention for wudu, that says not in the Quran, is in khabar ahad. You cannot add a condition on khabar ahad. The itminan in ruku and sujud, that says not in the Quran, so it's not obligatory. If someone prays in ruku and sujud without fully resting his bones, his prayer will still be valid. And likewise for the hadith, many other hadiths, you should have ablution for doing tawaf, that is not mentioned in the Quran, is khabar ahad. So Mirza Qadiani, we see from his example and from Usul Shashi, the hadith Mirza Qadiani was quoting, he was following the Hanafi Usul al-Fiqh. And there's no doubt about this, because in many places of Ruhani Khazain, he blames the Ahlul Hadith and he blames them to be Jews. He said the Jews who rejected, he said the Jews were divided in 72 sects, but the sect who rejected Isa alayhi salam was the Ahlul Hadith sect, because they used to act upon a hadith and reject the Torah, and they would give precedence to a hadith, Khabar Ahad and others over the Torah. And these are the one who rejected Isa and tried to and killed him. So he said in his book, Kishti Nuh, look at, totally he used to curse the Ahlul Hadith. Samia Nazir Hussain and Muhammad wa Fir'aun Mal'un. He said in his book, Kishti Nuh, page 53-54, volume 19 of Ruhani Khazain. If you download the PDF, it's on page 84-85. He's saying, Hazrat Isa us waqt Yahudu ke Hazrat, it's in the footnotes of the book. Hazrat Isa alayhi salam ke waqt mein Yahudi agarche bahut firqe the magar haq par samajhne wale do firqe the. There was many groups, but mainly there were two groups who were considered to be upon the truth. First group, ek wo jo Torah ki pabandi karte the, those who were following the Torah, aur us ijtihadi taur par masail karte the, and they were extracting rules by ijtihad from the Torah, you see. And he said there was another group, was the Ahlul Hadith, which favored ahadith over the Torah. These Ahlul Hadith was widely spread in Israeli lands, and they would act on ahadith that in most cases oppose the Torah. And their excuses was that all the masail of worship are not present in the Torah. So he said these people, the second group, दूसरा फिरका अहले हदीस था जो तौरात पर अहादीस को काजी समझते थे, ये अहले हदीस इज़राइल बिलाद में बहुत फैले थे. And then he said these people were cursed by Isa, and Allah and Isa alayhi salam came to tell them, no, you should act upon the Torah, not act upon these ahadith that oppose the Torah. He carries on his fairy tales and false stories, and said these Ahlul Hadith were, Prophet Isa salam, he came to censor them, and they caused his death. Totally, this shows that he was following Hanafi rules of Usul al-Fiqh, which tells the Khabar Ahad, you should check it with the Quran. If it opposes, you don't act, you don't do takhsis of the Quran with Khabar Ahad, you don't add to the Quran with Khabar Ahad. And Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim in I'lam Muqin has refuted the Hanafi Muqallil for these rules, and he's shown that sometimes they even add to the Quran with a weak hadith, and they even add to the Quran with qiyas sometimes. So, it's a long lecture, on Usul al-Hadith and Usul al-Fiqh. We will, inshallah, speak in another day. But just now, quickly, we will see, we've seen the quotes. Mirza saying, I'm a Hadith. He never liked the name. He was a Hanafi. He told his Jamaat to follow Hanafi fiqh. He followed the Hanafi rules of Hadith. He blamed the Ahlul Hadith for having false rules. Now we're going to see that he was a hardcore Sufi. In Ruhani Khazain, even in Tazkiratu Rasheed, it is written that Mirza Qadiani was a hardcore fan of Molana Rashid Gangohi. This testimony comes from the Deobandi house. You see, it is written in volume 228 of Tazkiratu Rasheed. Mirza Ghulam Qadiani jis zamane mein barahin likh raha tha, at the time before claiming, he being Masih, at the time he was writing his book Barahin. उनके फजल और कमाल व खराजात में चर्चा शहरा था, हालांकि उस वक्त तक उनको हजरत इमाम रब्बानी से अकीदत थी. At this time he had aqidat, he loved Imam Rabbani, meaning Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, और उस तरफ के जाने से वालों से दरियाफत करते थे कि हजरत मौलाना अच्छी तरह में हैं और दिल्ली से गंगो का क्या फासला है. Mirza Qadiani was a fan of Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, and he would ask people who would go to Gango, how is Maulana Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, and what is the way, what is the distance between Delhi and Gango, because he wanted to go and meet him. So this shows he was a loving, and in Tazkirah Rasheed, they never said he was Ahlul Hadith. This is a new claim. So this also shows a falsehood. So now we will have the first Sufi belief of Mirza. He believed that dead prophets come back on earth and meet people in a state of wakefulness. He said in his book, Izalat al-Awham, it is in Ruhani Khazain, volume 3, on page 226, and on the PDF is 258. He said, they, meaning they visit, meaning the dead people and prophets, they visit people of pure hearts on earth in state of wakefulness. Our Prophet meeting with the awliya in state of wakefulness is present in many books, and the author of the Risala, meaning himself, was honored to meet his honorable one, meaning he himself met the Prophet ﷺ. So it is written here कि बेदारी में पाक दिल लोगों को कभी ज़मीन पर आकर मुलाकात भी कर लेते हैं। हमारे नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम अक्सर औलिया से आइन बेदारी की हालत में मुलाकात करना किताबों में पढ़ा है, और मुअल्लिफ रिसाला हाज़ा भी एक दफ़ा इस अशरफ से मुशर्रफ हो चुका है. So he has this belief that the dead people, and this belief is present in the Deobandi book. So I have them. I mean, I'm only going to read the English, but the Urdu quotes are present in Arwa Salasa on the webpage. I will indicate them. It is written in Arwa Salasa in story number 440, that the story of a Sufi. He was doing zikr and painful was and crying a lot. He said himself when he was sitting on the northern dome of the mosque in Chata and while doing zikr, he said he saw a throne descending from the sky, and Janab the Prophet ﷺ was sitting on it with the 4 caliph also present on in the 4 corners. And then they left the throne and came to the mosque, and they speak to Molana Muhammad Qasim Nanodvi. And the Prophet ﷺ said to Molana Qasim Nanodvi, give me the hisab, meaning the accounts, the result of the Madrasa of Darul Uloom Deoband. And Molana Qasim Nanodvi gave him, the Prophet ﷺ, the accounts, and he started to tell the hisab and gave all the details of hisab. Hazrat, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, became extremely happy and said, right Molana, now give me the permission to leave. Hazrat, meaning Nanodvi, said, as you wish, then the throne rests in the sky. So they have in Arwa Salasa story, the Prophet ﷺ coming to Deoband and looking after the study in Darul Uloom Deoband. Also in other books that they have Khalil Ahmad the Prophet learned Urdu from the scholars of Deoband, Na'udhu Billah, because he was going there. And they have story of Qasim Nanodvi in Arwa Salatha, story 247. There was a dispute in Darul Uloom Deoband, and Molana Qasim Nanodvi came back and told Molana Mahmud Hassan Deobandi not to get involved in the dispute. And there are many, there's a story in Fazail Durud, Prophet coming from on the cloud and putting his hand in front of on the belly of a woman to cure her. So the Prophet coming back to life, Mirza believed after his death, meeting people. The Deobandi believe in it, Mirza Qadiani believes in it. Now Mirza, second point, Mirza Qadiani used to invoke dead people. It is written in Siratul Mahdi, volume 3, page 554 or 556 of the PDF. It is written, some people asked him about saying, Ya Rasulullah, he said, Balki, Hazrat Masih to apne ek shahr mein Hazrat se mukhatab hokar madad aur nusrat bhi chahiye. He said, not only he used to say, Ya Rasulullah, but also in one of his poems, he addressed the Prophet ﷺ and asked help from the Prophet ﷺ. And it's a poem in Farsi, which he translated as, Yani, e Rasulullah, aapki ummat par नाजू खरी हुई है मेरी मदद को तशरीफ ले आए ये नुसरत का वक्त है. The poem is in Farsi, Sayyid al-Wara madad waqt nusrat ust. So Mirza Qadiani used to invoke, and you won't find any Ahlul Hadith invoking the Prophet or the saint, but rather you will find Haji Imdadullah Makki and the Deobandi's book filled of invoking the Prophet. Haji Imdadullah Makki, the Sayyid Taif of the Deobandi, in Kulliyat Imdadiya, in his Risala Nala Imdad al-Ghaib, on page 9091, he's saying, Ya Rasulullah faryad hai, Muhammad Mustafa faryad hai, aapki madad hai, mere faryad hai, is sakhat mushkil mein pasa hu, mere mushkil kusha faryad hai. He's saying, I'm stuck in difficulty, oh the remover of difficulty, help me, help me, help me. This is the shirk propagated, sold by the Deobandi. This is their deen. Likewise, I'm just going to mention it. I'm not going to quote the books, because they're all present in my book on the Deobandis. The scans are present online, you see. Qasim Nanodvi is written in Shihab al-Thaqib of Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani. He said, oh, the Wahhabi that dislike reading the book Burda, Dalal Khairat, and they said shirk. While for us, these books are, good. And he said, Maulana Nanodvi himself would read similar verses as in the Burda. Help me, Karam Ahmadi, there is no except but you. Oh, there is no Hamika for the distress of Qasim. Who will be a reliever for the distress of Qasim? Likewise in Fadail Durud, there's a poem of Maulana Jami. it's translated into English, clearly seeking help from the Prophet ﷺ. Molana Jami, hardcore Wahdatul Wujudi, follower of Ibn Arabi. At the end, O Rasul, grant refuge and help for the needy and consolate the heart of those filled in love with you. So they are seeking help and refuge from the Prophet. Na'udhu billah. Now, Mirza Qadiani believed that the Sufi by Kashf can authenticate hadith. And he writes in Izalat Al-Awham, volume 1, page 177, 178, he is writing, sorry, just one second, in English, so it's 209, 210 of the PDF, or 177, 178 of Izalat Al-Awham. He's saying the people of Ulaya, by way of Kashf, ask ahkam to the Prophet ﷺ. And whenever one of them needs a hadith, they are honored by his visit. As Sheikh Ibn Arabi said, by this way we do tasrih of a hadith, meaning we authenticate, check the verification of muhaddis, na'uzubillah. Some hadiths are authentic for muhaddis, but not for us. And some fabricated become sahih by saying, by the Prophet saying true kashf. So they say we, the Sufis, have a way to check the hadith by kashf. And Ibn Arabi said some hadiths are going to be weak for the muhaddis, but the Prophet is going to check them. And some are going to be fabricated. Muhaddis are going to declare this hadith to be fabricated, but for us, because we saw the Prophet ﷺ, so for us these hadiths are alright. Where is Al-Awham? Inshallah, I mean, the scan is present. I'm just giving because, I mean, inshallah, I have it somewhere, but inshallah, the scan is present here. Anybody can download and check it. And this is his belief. And he's quoting his Sheikh Akbar, Muhyiddin Ibn Arabi, showing again he was a hardcore Ibn Arabi fan and follower. Oh, it might be in this series. Anyway, inshallah, people can download it and read the Urdu. So now we're going to carry on. And this is also affirmed by the Deobandis. This way of kashf. In his Malfuzat, volume 7, page 139, in the story 170, Ashraf Ali Tanvi, I'm just going to read you the English, and the scan is present in Urdu, you can check it. You see, it's present Hikayat Hazrat Shah Abdul Aziz the Bahr, who was a misguided Sufi, who believed that when a husband and a wife have jima, the Sufi Sheikh is present. The Bahr believed the awliya see the world like in his hand, they know the ghaib, they control the universe. And when his husband and wife, one of his students got married, he said, I will come on the night when you have, and the many stories he described, I mean, he's saying the awliya present everywhere, they watch their student doing jima with their wife, na'uzubillah. And this book, I mean, Iblis, even the Deobandi bravely both have translated into Urdu, and for them it's a muqaddas kitab, na'uzubillah min zalik. So he's saying, Ashraf al-Tanvi, there had been in this community some people of Allah were constantly seeing Huzur. Some people always see the Prophet ﷺ. Suyuti, hearing a hadith, would say whether it is a hadith or not a hadith. And when he was asked how, he replied that when it is a hadith, he looks at the luminous face of Huzur ﷺ, and if he sees happiness on it, he knows it is a hadith. And if he sees unhappiness, he knows it is not a hadith. So says Suyuti, Hafiz Suyuti, would see the face of the Prophet ﷺ all the time. And he would know if a hadith was authentic or not. And we have the same stories in Arwa Salasa, that for 12 years, Rashid Ahmad Gangohi would see the face of the Prophet ﷺ remained in my heart. And I did not do anything without asking him. So this is in the Masjid of Tasawwur Sheikh, imaginating your Sheikh. He said at the beginning he was doing Tasawwur Sheikh of Haji Imdadullah Maki. Then for 3 years the face of Imdadullah was remaining in my heart. I do not do anything without asking him. Then after, for 12 years, it was the Prophet, Rashid Gangohi would not do anything without asking the Prophet. Na'uzubillah, even the Sahaba differed in matters. They didn't have the face of the Prophet to tell them what to do in their fiqh or their politics when they had their disputes and the battle of Siffin. But these people, I mean, na'uzubillah, and even they have in Tazkiratu Rasheed saying guidance is based on my tiba, and in Ar-Wasalas another story saying Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, Allah promised me that no falsehood will come from my tongue. Na'uzubillah, na'uzubillah, na'uzubillah. And the Deobandi themselves said the Prophet can make mistakes in ijtihad when judging between people when they refute the Brailvis, but for them, na'uzubillah, they are above the level of prophets. And even in the book Imdadul Mushtaq, Haji Imdadullah Maki quotes the false hadith, the Anbiya of the prophets of my ummah, the awliya of my ummah are like the prophets of Bani Israel. And he quotes a rubbish story of Abu Hamid Ghazali coming on the night of Mehra, having an argument with Prophet Musa, and then this is an example to show that the awliya of the ummah of the Prophet, and this false hadith is quoted by the Brailvis, by Ahmad Raza Khan, by many Sufis. It has no basis in the books of hadith, you see. But for the Deobandi, they quote it, and na'udhu. So seeing the face of the Prophet to authenticate hadith, present in Malfusat, present in... now we're going to just finish with 2 points. It is written that in Siratul Mahdi, volume 1, page 62 or 68 of the PDF, that like the Deobandi, Mirza would do chilakushi, he would isolate for 40 days. No Ahlul Hadith does this kind of Sufi Khalwa, and they have in their stories Sufi Khalwa. And also in Siratul Mahdi, volume 1, page 64 or 70 of the PDF, there's Mirza Qadiani sitting at a grave and the dead person coming from the grave and talking to them. So, no Ahlul Hadith does this. And for the Deobandi, it is part of their religion. It's written in the, like I've shown before, Muhannad al-Mufannad. It is written in it, as for seeking benefits from the spirituality of the Mashaykh and seeking batini for use from the chest and grave, then it is correct according to the famous words of its people. And you've got in the book Kuliyat Imdadiya, you've got Haji Imdadullah Makki telling formulas to do kashf, to communicate with the dead people. You should sit at the grave, say 21 times Ya Rab, but then repeat Ya Ruh, looking at the sky, then Ya Ruh at the grave. And then there's also formulas to have kashf with souls of dead people and angels. So it is written in Sawan Qasmi that seeking help from dead is the creed of their scholars. So we have seen basically in these 5 examples that Mirza Ghulam Qadiani was a Sufi like the Deobandi. Now there are quotes from Ibn Arabi which have been, because when the Deobandi started to write books against the Ahlul Hadith, Molana Abdul Ghaffur Asari wrote a book, Hanfiyat and Mirzayat, in which he gave lots of quotes of, like he gave scans of Mehar Ali Shah, who is Sufi respected by the Deobandi and Brailvi, saying Mirza Qadiani was a Hanfi. Then he gave scans of, many scans of the Sufis, Sufi books, and he gives scans of Futuhat Makkiyah, showing that this creed was the one who opened the door for Mirza Qadiani, Ibn Arabi, Al-Jili and others. And he gave the scan of Futuhat Makkiyah. So in Futuhat Makkiyah, it is written in Futuhat Makkiyah, volume 2 and chapter 73, فَإِنَّ النُّبُوَّةَ الَّتِي انْقَطَعَتْ بِوُجُودِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ إِنَّمَا هِيَ نُبُوَّةُ التَّشْرِيعِ. The prophethood that was ceased by the coming of the Prophet is only Nubuwwat Tashri', the prophethood of law giving, la maqamaha, not its level. فَلَا شَرٌ يَكُونُ نَاسِخًا لِشَرْعِهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. There would be no law abrogating his law. And Mirza Qadiani said the same. Oh, I'm a prophet, but I will not bring a new law. And he quoted Ibn Arabi in his books. إن رسالة والنبوة قد انقطعت فلا رسول بعدي ولا نبي أي لا نبي بعدي يكون على شرع يخالف شرعي بل إذا كان يكون تحت حكم شرعي والرسول أي لا رسول بعدي في أحد الخلق بشرع يدعون إليه فهذا هو الذي انقطع وسد باب لا مقام النبوة. He says it's only the prophethood of law giving that has ceased, not its level. Then he carries on in Futuhat Makkiyah, فما ارتفعت نبوة بكلية. The prophethood has not ceased in its entirety. وَلِهَذَا قُلْنَا إِنَّمَا ارْتَفَتْ نُبُوَّةَ التَّشْرِيعِ. This is why we say only the prophethood of law-giving has ceased. This is the meaning of فَهَذَا مَعْنَى لَا نَبِيَ بَعْدَهُ. This is the meaning of there will be no prophet after me. فَعَلِمْنَا إِنَّ قَوْلُ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم لَا نَبِيَ بَعْدَهُ. The meaning of the Prophet saying there will be no prophet after me is لَا مُشَّرِيَ خَاصَةً. There will be no lawgiver after me. This is said. And then he says, carries on in Futuhat Makkiyah, فَالنُّبُوَّةُ سَارِيَةُ لَا يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. Nubuwa, prophethood, will carry on until the day of judgment في الخلق. وإن كانت تشريع قد انقطع بعد فالتشريع جزء من أجزاء النبوة. He said, the prophethood will carry on until the day of judgment in the creation, though the law-giving will cease. And law-giving is only a juz of prophethood. It is not all prophethood will cease. And he says in Futuhat Makkiyah, فَمَا زَالَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ لَا يَزَالُونَ فِي هَذِهِ الدَّارِ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. The messengers would not cease to come to the day of judgment. وَلَمْ يُبْعَثُوا بِشَرٍ نَاسِخٍ وَلَهُمْ عَلَى غَيْرِ شَرٍ مُحَمَّدٍ صلى الله عليه وسلم. Though these people won't be sent with a new law which will abrogate the law of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, or another, they won't have another law. وَلَكِنْ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most of the people do not know. Alhamdulillah, they don't know Futuhat Makkiyah, na'udhu billah. And last quote he said, فَقَطَعْنَا أَنَّا فِي هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ مَنْ لَهَا قَدَرَجَتْ دَرَجَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ فِي النُّبُوَّةِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ لَا فِي تَجْرِيدٍ. Some people will reach the level of nubuwah but not in law giving. So all these scans, I will give them as well under the name of Sufi scans. Say, like what Sharani in his kitab al-Yawaqit wal-Jawahir, he's saying the same. أَنَّ النُّبُوَّةَ لَمْ تَرْتَفَعْ مُطْلَقًا. The prophethood was not removed absolutely. بعد Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما ارتفع نبوة التشريع. Only prophethood for law giving was removed. You see, فما زال المرسلين ولا يزالون في هذه الدار ولكن من باطن شر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. So this is the same is said by many other Sufis. I mean, I will go over the course of the Maqabis al-Majalis of Khwajah Ghulam Faridi, but I will put the scans for people who want to. He's a Brailvi Pir, Khwajah Ghulam Faridi, Maqabis al-Majalis, and he's explaining the creed of Buruz, how a Sufi can incarnate in someone else, Ruh, or two Ruh unites, and he says this is taken from Futuhat of Ibn Arabi. He said there's one soul who is baris and one who इसके बाद आकर नर्स किया कि हुजूर का किस्म में दो रूह हैं, यानी एक रूह बारिज और दूसरी रूह मबरूज, कि one of the soul comes in the body, the other one is the one which gives the space. एक रूह बारिज होती है जैसे जनीन की रूह काबिल मुसद्दर रूह है. And then he says Ibn Arabi, you see. चुनांचे शेख अकबर अपनी किताब फुतुह में फरमाते हैं कि हजरत इदरीस अलैहिस्सलाम हजरत इलियास एक हैं. हजरत इदरीस की रूह पाक बदन की मिसाली जुदा होकर हजरत इलियास के जसद अंदर कि जसद अंसरी में बरूज हुई. He's saying the soul of Prophet Idris went and mixed with the soul of Prophet Ilyas, so the two became one. And he said the same he said in Fusus al-Hikam कि शेख मालूम होता है कि एक रूह बारिज एक रूह मबरूज है. So this creed is known to the Sufis. Abdul Karim Jili, like Nicholson mentioned, translated a bit in his studies of Islamic mysticism. He translated chapter 60 of Al-Insan Kamil of Abdul Karim Jili, a well-known Sufi. He's saying, Abdul Karim Jili, the perfect man is the Qutb. Al-Insan Kamil is the Qutb, on which the sphere of existence resolved from the first to the last. And since things became into being, he's one. He said the real Qutb, he's one, forever and ever. He had various guises and appears in diverse bodies, kana'is, in diverse bodily tabernacles. In respect of some of these, his name is given to him, while in respect of others, it is not given. His original name is Muhammad. His name of honor is Abul Qasim. His description Abdullah. His title Shamsuddin. In every meaning, the real Qutb is the Prophet ﷺ. In every age, he bears a name suitable to his guise in that age. I one met him in the form of Mashaykh Sharafuddin Ismail Jabrati, meaning the Prophet ﷺ appeared in Sharafuddin Ismail Jabrati, but I did not know that, although I knew that he was the Shaykh. This was one of the visions in which I was beheld in 796. The real meaning of this matter is that the Prophet has the power to assume every form. When the adept sees him in the form of Muhammad, which he wore during his life, he is named by he names him by that name. But when he sees him in other forms, he knows him to be Muhammad, but names him by the name of the form in which he appears. The name Muhammad is not applied except to the idea of Muhammad, Haqiqatul Muhammadiyah. So if for them Haqiqa Muhammadiyah, Nur Muhammadiyah appears in someone else, you will know he is the Prophet, but you will name him like his Sheikh Jabarti. But when he has his own body, then you name him Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But then, that's when he appeared in the form of Shibli, a well-known Sufi, at the time of Junaid. Shibli said to his disciple, bear witness that I am the apostle of God. He said to his student, say, La ilaha illallah Shibli Rasulullah. And the disciple, being one of the illuminated, recognized the Prophet and said, bear witness that thou art the apostle of God. No objection can be taken. And then he carries on, the Haqiqa Muhammadiyah never dies, takes different shape. This is the creed of Buruz. And just to conclude, I mean, the Deobandi have the same creed. I mean, it is horrifying. They translate this book, Mashaykh Chist of Molana Kandhalvi, Majlis Ulama South Africa, page 19. I mean, this is the creed of the Hindus, the creed of Tanasukh, that one dies, person dies, his soul goes into a body. So, in Mashaykh Chist, Molana Kandhalvi writes about the Ittihadi unification, Tawajjuh Ittihadi. In this type of tawajjuh, the Shaykh diffuses his ruh into the ruh of the murid to such a degree that both souls are united into a single soul. So in this type of tawajjuh, meaning concentration or whatever, the Shaykh puts his ruh into the ruh of the murid to such a degree that both souls are united into a single soul. It is quite obvious that this form of tawajjuh is the strongest. Thus, he gives an example. The episode of Hazrat Khwajah Baqi Billah, this Ruqad is famous. Hazrat Shah Abdul Aziz narrated several guests with Hazrat Baqi Billah. There was nursing by way of food in his home. With it, he came to his house. Nearby there was a bakery. When the baker learned of the arrival of the guest, he presented some elaborate prepared food. And then he said, ask whatever, the Shaykh was happy, and he said, ask whatever you wish. The baker replied, make me like you. Hazrat said, you will not be able to bear it. But the baker insisted that he be made like Hazrat. After refusing several times, the adamance of the baker finally prevailed. Hazrat took the baker into his room and cast tawajjuh ittihadi on him. When they emerged from the room, the tawajjuh had permitted even his external appearance. The baker's appearance was identical to Hazrat. However, the difference was Hazrat's consciousness and alertness, while the baker was in a state of semi-consciousness. On the third day, while in the state of semi-consciousness, the baker died. May Allah have mercy on him, na'udhu billah. So this is the way the Shaykh diffuses his ruh into the ruh of his murid. Both ruh become one. So this is the Aqidah of Ibn Arabi in Futuhat Makkiyah. This is the Aqidah of Abdul Karim Jili, that the Prophet's ruh comes into other. This is the Aqidah of Zakaria Kandhalvi. And they have many other stories. I mean, just the last one, inshallah. This is, I mean, the Deobandi, they exaggerate so much in the praise of the leaders. They're saying, Hajim Dadullah Maki had the Ulum Anbiya in him. But there's a very shocking story in Sawan Qasmi, volume number 1, page 258, 259. And they're saying that Qasim Nanodwi couldn't do too much dhikr because he felt some harshness in his heart. And they say he felt the same heaviness as the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet used to receive revelation, he would felt heaviness and the Prophet's shikamal would go down. They say Qasim Nanodwi felt the same revelation. Na'udhu billah. How can a human receive the same heaviness in his heart as the Prophet? And this is all the same creed of the Sufi, the manifestation of Haqiqa Muhammadi reflecting on the heart of Qasim Nanodwi. So he's saying, बड़े अल्फाज में फरमाते थे जहाँ तस्बीह कर बैठता हूँ मुसीबत होती है. He's feeling pain when he's doing tasbih. So he said this to his teacher कि मौजूद होती है कि so one of his teachers said, he's saying मौलाना हक ने इसके साथ खुसूसियत निस्बत और निस्बत खुसूसियत सार है मुशाहिदा की जाता है. फिर उस दावा की दलील है कि हज़रत हाजी साहब को याद दिला कि नुज़ुल वही इसी कैफियत है जो दूसरे कायनात सल्लल्लाहु पे हुई थी, जो सुरूर कायनात पर हुई थी. He said, Haji Imdad Ramaki, this is the same kayfiyat of the one that the Prophet used to have when the wahi used to come to him. जिसका ताल्लुक बयान किया है कि गैर मामूली वजन आप में पैदा होता है. There's a heaviness appearing ऊंट की पुष्ट पर उतरते तो ऊंट बैठ जाती, meaning if the Prophet was sitting on his she camel, the she camel Qaswa, she would sit down. Then he mentions the hadith Zayd ibn Sabit, the Prophet उस हाल में वही नाज़िल होती थी, Zayd का बयान है कि इतना गैर मामूली वज़न, that there was a weight more than the normal coming on the Prophet's heart. It is mentioned in Bukhari Sharif. So they're saying, to explain this, हाजी साहब ने मौलाना कासिम से खिताब किया, हाजी मुनव्वर मैं said ये नबूवत का आपके कल पर फैजान होता है, meaning this is the फैजान, the emanation of prophethood coming on your heart, और ये वो थिकल है, and this is the heaviness जो हुजूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को वही के वक्त महसूस होता था, meaning this is the emanation of prophethood coming on your heart, and this is the same heaviness that the Prophet ﷺ used to receive on his heart. जिसकी तशरीह हाजी साहब ने यूँ किया कि तुमसे यानी मौलाना कासिम से हक ताला वो काम लेना चाहता है जो नबियों से लेना चाहता है. You are going to do the same work that the Prophet used to do. So na'udhu none of the Sahaba, it is recorded anywhere, none of the scholars, Imam Abu Hanifa and others, used to say, have such a creed. And these people, they have made their Sufi religion, which you can't find in any books of hadith. They have stories, fairy tales, naked saints. You have such stories, such powers attributed to saints, saving ships, Imdadullah saving ships, that you wouldn't find any other places. And even in Bahr al-Kalam, which, I mean, these people are not Hanafi, they're not even Maturidi. You see, they claim to be Maturidi. Bahr al-Kalam is a book of a famous Imam Abu An-Nasafi. In this book, Bahr al-Kalam, he is saying that the creed that the dead return and meet the people alive is the creed of the Shia. He's saying in his Bahr al-Kalam, he's saying, وَسِنْفٍ مِّنَ الرَّوَافِدْ قَالُوا إِنَّ عَلِيًّا وَصَحْبُهُ يَرْجِعُونَ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا. This is the creed of the Shia, that Ali and his companions will return in the dunya فَيَنْتَقِمُونَ مِنْ أَعْدَائِهِمْ, and they will revenge from their enemies. وقال أهل السنة والجماعة, the أهل السنة say, كل من مات لا يرجع في الدنيا إلى يوم القيامة. Everybody who dies does not return in the world until their judgment. لأنه لا يقام عليه دليل. There's no proof of the dead returning. And this shows the veracity of what we say. Then he quoted many verses of the Quran. وَمِنْهَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. Meaning we will created you and we will return you another time. And he said, he only said 2 times. He didn't say that we will send back another time given life. وكذلك في قوله ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. Have you not seen how we destroyed people before, centuries before them, and they will not return? So when he mentions the belief of misguided sect like the Mu'tazila, Khawarij, he believed this among Allama Abu Nasafi, Maturidi, famous scholar, Bahr al-Kalam. He says this is the belief of the Shia. But the Deobandi, Prophet comes to Darul Deoband, he learns Urdu from the scholars of Deoband. Qasim Nanudvi comes back to Sal to settle a dispute and tells Mahmud Gangohi, don't enter the dispute. The scans are present in Urdu, the soul entering people, Khidr being in the British Army, Qisasullah Kabir of Molana Ashraf Ali Thanvi. There's a story of a scholar having there's the soul of Abu Hanifa and the soul of Ibn Sina coming to help him. One of the Sufi, dead people coming. So we will inshallah, in the book of Aftab Nubuwwat, they've changed the meaning of Khatam Nubuwwat, saying Khatam doesn't mean last but just means greatest. And the Prophet gives prophethood to others. So inshallah we will conclude this. The scans are given. We've shown 5-6 quotes that Mirza Qadiani was a Hanafi. He didn't like the name al-Hadith. He wouldn't do Raful Yadain. His Usul al-Fiqh in his debates and in his books. Ad Usul al-Fiqh of Ahnaf, same as Usul Shashi. On Khabar Ahad, on Sufism, he used to sit at graves, he used to isolate like Sufis. In the books of Sufis, you've got many stories of Sufi going in jungles, isolating in the book Mashaykh Chist. He used to invoke the Prophet ﷺ. He used to believe the Prophet ﷺ comes back to life and talks to them. He used to believe by Kashf and authentic hadith. And he had basically Sufi beliefs. He was a follower of Ibn Arabi. That's why he made his false religion, follower of Al-Jili, Sharani. So we say to Molana Mumtaz, you should if you sincerely want to refute Qadianism, you should refute the one who started this fitna as Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, that Sheikh Sa'taf and he called Mumituddin, La'in, the cursed one. You should condemn Ibn Arabi, his Fusus al-Hikam. You should have a talk with us, sit and debate about Fusus al-Hikam. Why are you selling this book? This book saying Pharaoh died upon Imam, the Mushrik, those who worship idols will go in ocean of knowledge, Mulali Qari condemn it. You should condemn Abdul Karim Jili, you should condemn Ali Briz of the Bahr, and all the fairy tales of the Bahr tells that in the cabin of Hira, the Ghossis, the prophets, Sahaba come, and that's why the Awliya decide whatever's going to happen tomorrow, and the Awliya decide whatever happens tomorrow, the Ghaus, the Qutb, and his assembly of saints. These are the fairy tales, Jami Karamat Awliya of Nabahani, Tabaqat of Sharani, Naked Saints. And inshallah, another lecture, inshallah, we will mention in detail the pornographic story of Masnavi that Ashraf al-Mitan translated, all the fairy tales of the Deobandi religion. That's why we tell Mumtazul Haq, you should come out of your group. You should just follow the Prophet and the Aslaf. You see, you should, nobody's infallible. You should reflect, and you should come to common ground. You see, if you see any wrong in the Deobandi books, you should condemn it. If you see black magic, you should condemn it, because all the people selling black magic will be asked on the day of judgment. All these books, someone's going to be responsible. We ask Molana Mumtazul Haq, instead of criticizing Ahlul Hadith, he should look at the kufr and shirk present in the Deobandi books, Ibn Arabi's book, Abdul Karim Jili's book, all these creeds of Haqiqa Muhammadiyah, the souls transferring to other places, the dead coming back. And we inshallah, we're going to do a series of more refutation of the Brailvis and the Deobandis, inshallah, in the future. And inshallah, we will, with their own books, be quoting to them, give the scans to people. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide the lamb, and even to guide Molana Mumtazul Haq. Because at the end, if he reforms the Deobandi and stops them selling these books and this black magic and others, we only wish good for, we don't have any hatred or natural jealousy. We just invoke Allah that He guides Molana Mumtazul Haq and his followers, and He guides Allah, guide us all. وقل قولي هذا والسلام والصلاة على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار